Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney Brains. Here, this is the spot where the conversation is pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Welcome home, Brains. There's only one requirement to hang out on the edge, is that you open your big brain and close your small mind. Did you bring your thinking caps? It's time to put them on, because the conversation starts now. Welcome to On the Edge with April Mahoney. Yes, you're back at the spot, your favorite podcast on the planet, the place where the conversations are pointed, the guests are sharp, and the responses are never dull. Brains, we're going across the pond. Oh yes, we're going to the United Kingdom. We are going to be with author Joy Wisdom. I love that. Joy Wisdom. That means that she's happy and that she's smart. She's going to be talking to us really from a clinical perspective on women's health. We go through so many phases in our life as women. You know, we're born, we go through puberty and adolescence, and then we go through childbearing years, and then the change of life, where our body completely changes, and sometimes we revert back, sometimes we can't handle it, sometimes it really kind of takes us off kilter. But there are things that we can do to prepare our mind, our body, and our soul to be able to go through this transition, to be able to rise above this metamorphosis of change, to fly like the butterfly. And Joy is going to talk to us about that and a whole lot more. Let's welcome her to the show. How are you, Joy?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much, April, for inviting me to come
Absolutely.
along today. I'm delighted.
I love that necklace. That's resonating with
Oh,
my soul. That's beautiful.
thank you.
So tell my
Yeah.
brains a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Okay. I am a clinical practitioner and has been for over 22 years. I am a craniosacral therapist. I've done a lot specialized in mental health, emotional issues, maternal stress, and my passion is very much about women and children's health and how birth affects us on many, many levels. And women are not supported as they should be in many, many avenues of their different stages of transition. And my my passion takes us to where we can help women and reduce mental health, reduce ADHD, reduce cognitive issues if we can have smoother transitions, helping women after birth so that they aren't going into post depression, postnatal depression, or PPD as it's called now, and trauma, because it goes on for a very long time, much more than they appreciate. And of course, this affects then the infant's cognitive development as well, which is well documented now. So, very, very much everything I looked at with when I was treating women and babies from birth trauma, and even in the womb, um, these areas of uh, engagement with the mother, bonding, are so, so important and critical to avoid the mental health that follows, the
Right.
cognitive issues.
But you know, there are so many dynamics that go into that. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll just name a few. Uh,
yeah.
Firstly, you know, you have to look at the conception. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
this is intergenerational. This is epigenetic. It is
Hmm.
in the DNA. If there's been trauma in the mother, the grandmother, the great grandmother, all of this lineage goes down. And then you get into a situation where you get pregnant by some unseathy, unsavory character. You've got to deal with that. You're a single
Hmm.
parent, you're dealing with that. Or you have medical issues of your own. You have to get your head around these things. Pregnancy and carrying a baby is a conscious choice. We are
Mm.
struggling here in the United States like no other. I am, pro-life, absolutely, but I am also pro-choice. There are
Of course.
situations to where women are not able to go through that. And then you have
Mm.
the baby. Everybody's not cut out to be a mother, Joy. You know
No,
that?
they're not.
They're
They're not.
not. They get there, and there's been horror stories here where the mother has fallen into such depression. Maybe she's not with that person. Maybe that person's been abusive. Maybe the baby is born with some birth defects that they can't deal with. It's a lot of contributing factors. How do we
There are.
learn to just embrace where we are in the moment and take it one step at a time?
You're right. There are so many factors, and very much the impacts from transgenerational is huge, absolutely huge. And although it's a new science, it's not, from my point of view, going deep enough. And certainly working with babies as I did, I realized the depth and breadth that they were taking on board from the womb,
Mhm.
and I developed methods to be able to help with that, and dissolve and resolve emotions that work very effectively with children with birth trauma. So I think one of the first things is that if we could improve our birth experience and improve that bonding experience, improve that trauma does happen, whether you have a normal birth or not. And helping mother and baby at that point would help to slow down a lot of the issues that may follow.
Absolutely. And also being open and honest with yourself. If you feel that you are in a tumultuous situation, self induced or outside influences, reach out for help. There is
Yes.
help. You don't have to go through this alone. There are women support groups, there's great people like Joy, there's coaching, there's books online, there's a lot of things that you can do, again, like she said, to slow down the process. Understanding it is key. You do a lot of work too with integrated medicine. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
how that integrated medicine applies to this.
Well, it is a whole body experience, isn't it, birth?
Mhm.
And hormonally, um, mentally, we are that birth process. There are hormones that are released, and that will dictate our coping strategies. It will dictate how well we cope with stress. It will dictate how we will be conscious of those around us, awareness, perception, all of those things will all happen. And if there are events such as trauma, etc., we shut down. We shut down energetically, our heart closes down, and this is where we become numb,
Mhm.
and how we then start to develop psychopathic
Mhm.
influences and all of these things because the brain pathways are reduced. And if we don't have that bonding, they won't develop in that way. And developing and teaching, we are teaching our baby love when we're carrying the baby. We're
Mhm.
teaching the baby security when they bond. So there are an awful lot of sensual awareness, perceptions that are going on for the child, but also in the development of that child.
Right.
If it feels love, if it feels that development, it will start to form those hormones, but also those sensory perceptions
Mhm.
that will then help the baby to recognize love, recognize that bonding, recognize and feel secure in the world because a lot of children don't feel secure.
No, they
And
don't.
working with ADHD children, that I specialized in cranial sacral um, therapy, was very much around the birth trauma and the helping to ignite and to ignite those hormones that were going to be able then to change the emotional strategies here, and then able to uh, create a calmer world for the child,
Right.
but also opening up the frontal cortex, dopamine, and helping the brain pathways to start to develop with those I feel safe in the world rather than this is a scary place and I'm living on survival.
Well, you have other gifts. You are empathic and you are intuitive and you work
Mm,
from a place of intention. And
yeah.
that is what is so important because there's compassion there, brains. It's not just about, oh, let me give you a pill. Let me
Mm,
let me cut you open and do this. Let me give you a radiation scan and take a look at this. But this is heart-centered work. This is spiritual work. This is God's work. And the
yeah.
human body and the delivering of a baby is God's work. I mean, there's
Mm.
nothing in the world. You can have AI all day long, but you cannot create the two components that there are to create life. And so you have
And
to
it's
take this very
intelligence.
seriously.
Yeah, it's intelligence that comes from those sensory perceptions. And it's a knowing, it's a sense.
Mhm.
But yes, the work I do with the integrated medicine is very much tailored to the individual because we can have all the theories, but the reality and the outcome for individuals are completely different. And of course, if you've got transgenerational influences here, you've got influences from the womb, you've taken on mum's emotions, mom's levels of coping, etc. We need to work with the individual and what needs to be corrected, aligned for that individual. And this is where the teaching of professionals and individuals, personal growth, all of those things, spiritual development, which I also do, is around we need to be aware as a practitioner to be able to facilitate that. So I'm very, very keen on heart opening, working from the heart and the compassion and seeing and facilitating the needs for the client.
And also dealing in the subconscious mind.
Mm,
There are 5 or 6 people in your head brains that you haven't even met yet. And to be introduced to that, but to be able to call that forth and ask for the highest and greatest good. What else is
mm,
possible? How can it get any better than this? To change the
mm.
neurolinguistic programming, to change the negative Nelly that continuously is in that frontal vortex of your brain that's telling you, I can't do this. I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
It's dependent upon him, her, we, they, them. It's all of that. And I know that it's hard, but there's nothing harder than giving birth. Oh, trust me, I did it one time and I was done. My grandmother did it 9 times.
Wow.
Right. I know. I know. And it's the wonderment. Here in the United States, the infant mortality rate of African American children have soared.
Wow.
These young women or women are not surviving the birthing process, or the children are not surviving. And I
Mm.
don't understand why that is, especially in the 21st century, especially with the technology that we have. Even if you don't have top notch medical care, you have access to things that are not primitive. And I
Mm.
don't understand what's going on there in the UK. Is there a trend or anything that you're seeing with infant mortality rates?
We do have quite high preterm births
Hmm.
in the UK, and it has been one of the highest in Europe for quite a while now. Um, the data says it's down to stress, but it's also lifestyle, diet. vitamins, minerals, all of those things. And of course, the placenta for stillbirth and early mortality is another factor. Um, but again, it's around getting and changing diet, etc., because the infant will take all that it needs from the mother. And if the mother hasn't got that quota, then she will then feel the decline from that. And I teach in my pregnancy and birth book, I talk about we need to get fit for pregnancy. We
Mhm.
need both partners need to get fit for pregnancy. And it is the quality of the sperm, quality of the egg that is going to determine the outcome and whether the woman is going to be able to take it full term or preterm. And we, as I said, we have quite a lot of preterm births. And preterm births is very much factored into ADHD. Those children do tend to be more prone to ADHD and cognitive issues.
Well, I've been looking at a lot of videos on YouTube. I don't have grandchildren, I have grandhoneys. So I've adopted other people's children as my
Mm,
grandchildren. And I noticed that their creativity is being stifled. Uh,
mhm.
Again, it is a lot to do with misdiagnosis of autism and ADHD. I mean, we all went to school with hyperactive kids. We all went to
Yes,
school with the one that was distracted and bad. We all
yeah,
went to school with the one that was subdued and more suppressed. But now it seems like it's an epidemic. They're quick to tick the box. They're quick to
absolutely.
they're quick to medicate. They want everybody, here in the United States, you got 20, 25 kids in one class, one teacher, no teacher's aide. Okay. And you're trying to teach a standardized curriculum to these children. Everyone does not develop at the same time. We all don't go through puberty at the same time. We all don't get our front teeth out at the same time. It's very individualized. What are some suggestions that you would give to parents when they are faced with a child that has special needs or seems to not fall into the box that needs to be ticked?
I couldn't agree more. We do certainly jump in nowadays rather than looking at the individual. Certainly from the children that I have worked with and my experience with ADHD, some children are being labeled as ADHD. For instance, one child was brought to me um, with ADHD, and I said to the parents, he doesn't have ADHD. He may be a little bit frustrated, but he didn't have ADHD. And this little boy, he could play Mozart.
Mm,
He would sit at the piano and play Mozart. There is no way somebody with ADHD could sit and play.
mm,
And this is the extremes that we seem to be having these days with the labels. And there is a big difference in a child that has ADHD and a child that is overstimulated,
right.
because there is a difference. And those children that are overstimulated, it could be that there is a lifestyle of the parents that is too much for that child. And so the child becomes hyper and overstimulated. He hasn't got ADHD. It is just the way of the lifestyle that is creating this, where the child doesn't know what relaxation is, doesn't know what downtime is. So, very, very much, I suggest to parents the diet, reducing the sugar, etc., that is going to overstimulate the colas, all of those sort of things, and getting them more on a simple, plain diet with fruit and veg if they'll have it, or you can put them into smoothies and things like that. Enzymes and and vitamins are important for them, such as zinc. Zinc is really, really important for the cognitive development, but it's also it does other things within the growth system. So it helps enormously. Magnesium is another one. Um, and vitamin C opens the gates for other nutrients to be absorbed. So if we can get some of those into the diet, and zinc has made a huge difference to children just by taking zinc once a day, and you can get it in liquid form, or you can look at foods that you can get in. But children do have their different tastes and appetites, sometimes it's a little bit
Well,
narrow.
that gets on my nerve too. Is that they're
Mm,
quick to take them to get a Mackie because it is convenient, and
yeah,
it's not about convenience. It's about long-term sustainability. It's
it
about
is.
growth. It's about their uh, their cognitive functions, their physical development, their social interactions. When
Hmm.
kids go, one of my grandhoneys, I took him out to dinner and I said, well, what are we going to eat? He goes, oh, well, I really like lobster and crab. I'm like, well, wow,
Oh, well done.
that I know. And I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and service. I take him to the
Mm,
restaurant. He ordered a full on salad, some veggies. And I was so impressed. But I also looked
mm,
at the culture. He is of Asian descent, where there was
mm.
a lot of fresh vegetables. Mother cooked, grandma cooked. He was invited into the kitchen. They have a garden. All of those things were key indicators. And I looked at that and I was like, this is brilliant. My child, she loved vegetables, but I consumed those things and fish. She
Mm.
loves fish like I love fish, but I consumed those things during my pregnancy. I want to talk a
That's
little
right.
bit more about designer pregnancies. Very
Hmm.
popular these days. I don't know how I feel about it. Now, I'm not talking about the people that use in vitro because that's a gift. But some of these celebrities are designing when they want to give birth. Oh, well, and I want to get a tummy tuck immediately after. There's a psychological preparation in their mind already that goes
Mm.
down into that child. And also, there's a shock. You can't take the cake out of the oven before it rises.
Absolutely. The I call them diary births, and certainly the I'll pick a day is not necessarily when the child will want to be born, and the body secretes hormones when it's ready to give birth. And if you interrupt with that process, and I know it because I've treated people with it, where they have been out of sync with the zodiac, with
Mm.
their agenda, because they have not been allowed to be delivered on their time frame, their agenda, their appointment, if you like, to enter the world. And they have issues then in their life of where they're turning up at the bus stop. The bus went 3 days before.
Mhm.
So they're missing opportunities. They're out of sync with life and they are out of sync with their own agenda. And
And that's
again,
the whole contract. I mean,
no,
before we arrive, brains, I don't know how deep we want to get into this, but you've got a soul contract with the creator.
yeah,
You
mm,
signed up for who you're going to be with, what you're going to be, what your assignment is, and when the end of that assignment is, and what the next destination will be. And if others alter that, you set it all out of balance, right, Joy?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And being able to put these people back on their soul contract is part of my Allonus light healing
Mm.
training that I help people with in all sorts of ways, personal growth, but improving their intuition, their sixth senses, their sensory perception, getting that all balanced. And understanding about auras and chakras, and it's a big, big subject.
It is.
And we don't realize how big it is or how much it helps to determine our lives and what we can tap into.
Tell us a little bit about the crystal children. Explain that to us.
So the crystal children are part of a long-term, we're looking at decades here, of children coming in with, they come in with awareness, chakra levels, and a sacred heart, because we have three heart chakras, did you know? And they come in with that heart chakra, second heart chakra already open. It's called the sacred heart. And the sacred heart aligns them with Christ consciousness. It's not a religion, it's a vibrancy, it's a frequency that they work with. And they are aligned with crystalline energy. They are hugely, hugely sensitive. And they are advanced. They really are advanced. They understand compassion. They don't understand why people want to hurt one another. They don't understand why we can be so hurtful. And it does affect this sacred heart. And I've worked with lots and lots of children who are crystals and adults. And we've had adults coming in. The first wave of crystals that came in were in the 50s, very, very small amounts. And then a bigger wave came in the 70s with the indigos, the second wave of indigos. And they were crystals as well. They found life very, very challenging. Because they didn't have the parameters. They have a different energetic system to indigos. Indigos are more, they don't suffer fools lightly. They have come in to make a lot of change. And these are the people now in governments, in CEOs and all of this sort of thing, changing systems for us to benefit from.
Right.
And indigos too have been frustrated because they've not been heard. They've been seen as quirky or new age, all of these things that have been labeled. My son is an indigo, and he gets very, very frustrated. My daughter is crystal. So I've had one of each from the 70s, but very different characters, very different sensitivities, very different needs, what they eat, how they see the world. A lot of indigos see the world in sacred geometry. They see it as mathematics, and they also have a different aptitude to maths and science and so on and so forth. They're absolutely brilliant people.
They are. And again, we want to embrace both
Of
because of
course.
the duality, but we are in 5G. We are headed to
Mm.
the next dimension. We are at the portal, brains. Now, whether you get through it or not, that's up to you. But you need to be aware, you need to be conscious, and you need to be sensitive. Pay attention to your children. They will tell you what you need to know. Look at their actions, look at their interactions, look at their reactions, their responses. It's very important. Don't just sit them in front of this device and allow it to groom your child. Have a conversation. Again, I took my grand honey out, and it was very alarming to me because his mother told me, "Oh, yes, I've got an appointment with the school because he's not finishing his assignments. They're going to test him for ADHD." I was so annoyed. You know what I told her? Have them tested to see if he's gifted. How about
Mm.
that? Because
It's
children that are
broad.
gifted, yes, children that are gifted have challenges too. Just
Mm.
because they're uber smart doesn't mean that their social interaction is in alignment with what we consider normal. He
Mm.
does not finish his work, he's bored. The conversation
Exactly.
that I had with him was not one of a 7-year old, it was one of a 10 or 11-year old. He
Mm.
questioned me. His
Mm.
conversation, he was very polite. Yes, no, thank you, please. I mean, just rolled off his tongue. He calls me April Mahoney. I love that. My first last name. Well, how are you, April Mahoney? Very mature, very robust. And I'm telling her, they're going to tell you that he has ADHD. Uh-uh. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying
No.
it. Because they can't control you, because they can't put you in this box, because you are different. You're outside of, what the other kids are doing. Now all of a sudden, you're distracting because you're not going along with this standardized programming that they have. Creativity, allow your children to be creative. Allow them to express themselves. Work with joy. See if they're a crystal. See if they're an indigo. See who you are and how you align with that. I want to ask you a couple more questions before we conclude, because we could talk about this forever. You are brilliant. I want to talk about your 3 books. Tell my brains a little bit about your books and what are inside the pages of those great documents.
Well, my first book was about pregnancy and birth, women's health issues, children's health issues, such as eczema being picked up by stress from the mother in the womb. And then the child is born with eczema, the irritation that gets under their skin. And remove that irritation, helping to dissolve and resolve the emotional impacts. And the eczema clears up, and I've got case studies in there. The other side of it is around birth and the birth process, and how we need to be more informed and how we can make different choices. And I do have about crystal children in that book, Pregnancy and Birth, a New Generation, about the sensitivities of the children and how they do pick up on other people's negativity. And I know from working with these children since early 2000, they do kick up a fuss if there are people around them with negativity because they don't like it. They're picking up on it. And they don't necessarily look you in the eye. They look above
Hmm.
your crown. They look at your crown to see who you are because they can read you, where you've been, what you've done, whether you are living from a heart space, because these are the people they want to interact with a heart space, with that love, with that compassion. And certainly the children of the 70s, we were here to pave the way for them. The children of the 70s were there to pave the way for the children and the mothers, fathers that we have now, our grandchildren, etc. And I have, there's been lots and lots of different groups of crystals that have come through. And I also teach about that on a separate element. Um, on my second book called Mirror Image is about how we take on from intergenerational dominance and how this is formed in the womb, how we pass it on through DNA, but also by conditioning, and how this affects us. And there's lots and lots of case studies in there showing the influences that have happened, such as alcoholism. That can be passed down. And sometimes it jumps generations. Addictions to drugs, smoking, all of those sort of things. Your parents may not have done it, but your grandparents, great grandparents may have. Down the line it comes. Interesting one recently is aspartame. How aspartame actually affects through the generations. So the grandparents could have had aspartame. It was very, very popular, 60s, 70s, and so on. And how that is influencing mood, depression in future generations.
What is the spot?
So aspartame, the sweeteners.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Using sweet. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
Chinese call it the sweet poison.
Do they?
Yes, they do.
Correct. Correct name for it. Um, and of course, the other thing is that we can have digestive issues today, but they may have been dominated and formed, or the weaknesses formed, passed down again from generations into us today. Infertility is another one. Grandparent smoking affects the number of eggs and the quality of those eggs. that also then passes down within infertility. The grandfathers who smoked early at puberty, and this is why the hormonal comes into everything, the different stages of development and growth, and grandfathers who smoked uh, early on, 8, 9, puberty time, have affected obesity and heart attacks in the male line.
Wow.
So there is such a huge, huge area here with the transgenerational. I also talk about the quantum field in the mirror image book. The other book that I've written is called Shell of Soul. And this is around my explaining around my dissolve and resolve dare therapy, but also around how we live this disassociation in life. We become more of a shell of soul rather than living that soul agenda that you talked of earlier, and how we can be affected from past life influences such as self-esteem, self-worth, confidence, fears, irrational fears today, but still underlies. And of course, it's all subconscious, works at a subconscious level. We don't realize our language, our interactions, all of those things, living on survival, being conditioned that we can only live this much rather than that much.
Right. And being
And
programmed. I tell people
absolutely,
being
yeah.
programmed, influenced, and brainwashed. Every commercial that you
Oh,
watch on television, the
yeah.
songs that our children are listening to, the air that we breathe. A friend of mine is really into chemtrails, and we'll be outside and she'll see smoke exuding from an airplane. She goes, "Oh my God, what are they putting in
Mhm.
the air to poison us now?" People think these
Yeah,
are conspiracy theories, but you better look into it a little deeper because there is forces out there, individuals that are trying to dictate humanity. You look at
absolutely.
robotics now. Here in the United
Mm,
States, we've got some people that are about to be in office that are going to turn this place upside down. And they look at America as a template for the rest of the world. So you better be
mm.
careful. You better watch out. In conclusion, I'm going to ask you some fun questions before we completely stop, but I want to touch on menopause. It is no pause, Joy Wisdom. It is full throttle.
Absolutely.
And women have they don't know how to deal with it. Number one, they feel that it is the end. Number two, when you have a hot flash, you feel like it is the end. But number three, when you come out on the other side, which I have, there is a certain wisdom that I have acquired. There's a certain savoir faire, there's a certain grace, there's a certain elegance that, and unapologetically,
Mm.
because now I am able to serve. So know that on the back end of that, there is joy in that wisdom. Tell us your perspective on that.
I um I had early menopause because I had endometriosis, and at the age of 33, I had hysterectomy, quite young. And it took me 2 years to recover from that hysterectomy because I was in a very poor state before I even went in for the op. I then started to recover, and then the menopause hit several years later because I kept my ovaries. For me, um, it was the best thing I ever had done was my hysterectomy because I was in such a poor state. Um, and I did advance. The the learning around menopause was a challenge. It was a journey because, like everybody else, we've got no diary date. We've got no, oh, well, this is the red spot. This is where it's going to start. We don't know. And the rug is pulled. There's no doubt about it. Rug is pulled. We're not expecting these levels of reactions and symptoms that we have because hormones have supported us, and suddenly they're not supporting us. There is no education. And in 2020, the government in England did a survey, and surprise, surprise, women said I don't understand about this. I am not taught. There is no education. There is no support. There was no support for me when I went to my doctor and he said, "Oh well, we'll take you in and have a test." Well, what is wrong with me? Well, if I explained it to you, you wouldn't understand.
Right. And what are you
And
testing me?
this, yeah, and that, we're not stupid. We are undereducated. And and professionals need bringing up to date with what the modern woman needs and wants, because they are not facilitating it from my point of view. And certainly from my point of view, it starts very early with hormonal issues, as it did for me in puberty. I started my periods at 9. I had issues.
Hmm.
I was told by my doctor, when you have a baby, you'll be fine. Oh, well, I've got to wait, and nowadays you could be waiting 20 years
Right.
before you become pregnant
Right.
because women have babies later.
And the
Um,
maturity level. We talked about that at the beginning of the interview. At 9 years
yeah,
old, really? You don't know what in the world is going on here?
you don't. And we are sadly, and for decades, we've been sadly misguided. We haven't been educated. We have not been acknowledged, and we have not been observed as needing assistance and needing education. And we really do need to change that around because women have suffered for too long. We've got to make change. And I certainly want my future generations of grandchildren not to have to go through with this ignorance, because the ignorance ends up with us having endometriosis, infertility, hysterectomy, because this is where they go now. They leave it until it's too late. There's no prevention. And it is this, well, we'll wait. Oh, it's too far now. We'll have to do a hysterectomy. It's horrendous for a woman to have a hysterectomy.
Yeah, it is.
And of course, there could be cancer at the back of that when they test, etc. So we aren't supporting. They're throwing us to the wolves, and that needs to change. We
And you know
can't
what else
continue.
we need to do? We need to support one another.
Of
We
course we
need to
do.
support each other as women. Whatever
Yeah,
your choice is, whatever your choice is,
yeah.
support me because, or educate me, love on
Mm,
me, respect me.
mm,
But
that's right.
don't victim shame me. Don't
No,
abuse me. Don't tongue lash me because of something that I have to do or choice that I have to make. Let's ask you some fun questions.
can I just say I set up Joy Wisdom Trust to be able to support women
Hmm.
in their education as well as professionals, and helping women to have one-to-one support, but also webinars so they understand what they can do for them, because we can, and empowering women to be able to look at things from a different perspective, because the more we are apathetic about it, the more we lose of our life. The more we take responsibility, the more we're empowered, the more we can make those changes. And the education is key, as we've said. But having that education, we know what to prepare for. We understand what may be coming. And of course, this is unique to all women. But if we know the facts, we can prepare. We're empowered. And that's what Joy Wisdom Trust wants to do.
Okay, well, we're going to definitely put all that information at the show notes and at the back of the interview because I want you to visit it. I want you to have a conversation with Joy. I want her to share her wisdom with you. This is a conversation that I have enjoyed so much and I've learned so much. And we haven't even talked about the things we talked about in the green room. You know that you're gonna have to come back and visit with me again. But let's people get to know
My
you.
pleasure.
Let's talk about some fun stuff. If you were an appliance in the kitchen of all places, what appliance would you be, Joy?
The kettle, I think.
The kettle.
The kettle.
Why would you be the kettle?
Because I'm with you all the time. You use me. I can let off steam.
Mm,
And yes, I'm your standby.
okay, I appreciate that. I do. I would probably be the spice grinder.
Oh, right.
Right, because I can mix it up, I can make it spicy, I give you flavor, I give you choices, I give you options. I love that.
Well done.
If what a planet in the solar system do you most align with?
Uh, Leo.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Star system of Leo. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, okay, I get that because I'm a Leo. So
Me too.
yeah, yeah, and we're misunderstood, brains. We're not the
Oh,
aggressor and the predator that you think we are, but
no.
we do demand loyalty, don't we, Joy? I want you to be loyal and I want you to be honest because I can take it. If you were a car, what kind of car would you be?
Oh, a 4x4 probably.
Oh, nice and rugged and rough and handles the terrain.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can get plenty in the boot.
If you could have a conversation with a 25-year-old Joy Wisdom, what would you say to her?
Oh, hang on to your hat because boy, is it going to be a ride. It's been, it's been a marvelous life, a marvelous experience, and none of it was obvious. But the path that I've taken has been a hell of a ride. I've been disbelieved, I've been questioned, I've been uh, every day it's proof, proof, proof. But yeah, my Leo, my Leo big heart helps me on a daily basis, and the compassion and love for humanity is enormous.
It is. Well, you are a gift to the world. You are truly joy. And I've enjoyed this so much. Please tell my brains how to get in contact with you, how to work with you, and how to purchase a copy of one of your books, if not all three.
Yes. Hello, brains. Well, have a look at my website, www.allonus, all on us, ALLONUS.co.uk. And you can find videos of the books. You can download introductions from the books. You can order the books online, and they are in ebooks on Amazon. And there's lots and lots of videos, other downloads, and on joywisdomtrust.org is www.joywisdomtrust.org. And again, on there, lots of information, videos, and downloads on there as well.
Well, brains, I want you to reach out and do yourself a favor. Find out who you are, where you are, how you are in alignment, but have someone to consult with, someone that has dedicated their life, that has went on this ride, that's been a hot, steamy tea kettle, but also rough and rugged, but has the heart of a lion to go on this journey with you because preparing for childbirth in the midst of pregnancy and the aftermath, and also the settling into who you will become after menopause, it all needs guidance. Thank you so much, Joy. You are the best. I need you to go in, brains, and love, like, share, and subscribe right here. We're going to be moving. We're going to be moving from Blog Talk to Spreaker. All the information will be transferred over. All of our interviews will be there. We're going to upload as many of them as we can. You can find all of the great interviews that we've done on YouTube. They are on LinkedIn. We are also on Instagram. So I thank you from the bottom of my socks because my heart just isn't deep enough. Bye, Joy.
Thank you so much.